Alright guys, in today's video we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 having true exclusive games. As in, when you buy the PlayStation 5, Sony's going to have some exclusive games on offer that you can only play on the PS5. And the reason why we're going to have this conversation is because there's been a lot of discussion going on about this topic ever since Matt Booty came out and explained that when it comes to the Xbox Series X, Microsoft is not going to have any games that are just made for the Xbox Series X and PC for at least 1 to 2 years. And so I gave my thoughts on that, and if you're interested in it, you can go watch that video. I put it out yesterday. But today we're going to focus on just the PlayStation 5 because I've seen a lot of people trying to make it seem as though Sony is going to be doing the exact same thing and following Microsoft's footsteps here, but there's actually a lot of evidence out here that says the exact opposite. So we're going to be discussing two pieces of information that are not necessarily new, but either people maybe are not aware about or they forgot about it, but the other piece of information is somewhat new. And so, I want to discuss that as well. But starting here with this article that a lot of people have been referring me to, I think there was at least one or two articles that came out yesterday, I guess because of the whole news surrounding the Xbox Series X not having, true exclusive games at launch, of articles being written up where the titles are a little bit misleading, making it seem as though Sony has already confirmed that the PlayStation 5 is not going to have launch exclusives. And people were referring me to these articles and telling me that I need to stop saying what I'm saying about Microsoft because Sony is going to be following them and doing the same thing. So I looked into this, and it turns out that all these articles are referring to are some things that Jim Ryan had to say back in early 2019 with the first Wired article that was written up about the PlayStation 5. And all he discussed within this article is PlayStation 4 being compatible with multiplayer, or PlayStation 5, I should say, being compatible with multiplayer games that are playable on PlayStation 4. He didn't say anything at all about PlayStation 5 exclusives, them not having PlayStation 5 exclusives, or PlayStation 5 exclusives being cross-gen. He literally just talked about multiplayer titles. He could have been talking about third-party or first-party or both, and saying that if you have a group of friends that you're playing with online on PS4 and you decide to upgrade to the PS5, let's say you're playing games like Fortnite, Call of Duty, PUBG, whatever it may be, right? And you want to continue to play these games together, you don't have to fear that by you upgrading to the PS5, you're suddenly not going to be able to play online with your friends anymore until they get PS5s. That's not how it's going to work. Had absolutely nothing to do with PS5 exclusives, and so I had to put this at the beginning of the video to just let people know, maybe actually look into what you're talking about here, read a little bit, and you're going to discover that Sony has not given any inclination whatsoever that they're not going to have PS5 exclusives at launch. Moving on from that, we're going to go over the other information that we've already known about, and it comes from Jason Schreier of Kotaku, who is a well-known insider, and he has a very good track record. Now, this is something we already covered and discussed. I believe it was either a couple of weeks ago, maybe even a month or two ago, but it's worth reiterating here. In fact, you're going to see a lot of articles currently being written up about it, even though it's something that has already made the rounds. It's worth reiterating and repeating for those who may have forgotten it or for those who don't yet know. During the Split Screen podcast, which is Kotaku's podcast, a couple of weeks ago, Jason Schreier was talking about the next-gen consoles, and he said that based off of what he has heard so far is that Sony is going to have true PlayStation 5 exclusives at the launch. Microsoft is probably not going to, and as we know now, that is confirmed to be the case. They are 100% not going to have Xbox Series X exclusives at launch. And he also went on to say that most third-party games are going to be cross-gen, but Sony is going to have true PS5 exclusives. And he also said, and this is something I didn't really talk about in the video where we covered this, that he plans to do a write-up on this and to kind of talk about it and discuss it further in depth, which tells me he definitely has some things he knows that he is contemplating sharing and talking about more in depth, and he hasn't done that yet. I have to imagine he's going to be doing it sometime soon. He's probably waiting till we get closer to the reveal of the PS5. And so, there's more evidence that's coming from a well-known insider, somebody with a really good track record, letting us know that the PS5 is going to have exclusive games at launch. Now, the other thing I do want to talk about here, and this is where the new information comes in, it comes from the individual Tidix from Twitter. We've talked about this individual in the past on the channel, and we're probably going to continue to talk about what this this person has to say, because it's very clear, in my opinion, that they have some type of contacts, some type of inside knowledge that they are, sometimes willing to share a few tidbits here and there. And he actually put this out on Twitter. He said, "To be clear, PlayStation will only release PlayStation 5 games after the launch of Ghost of Tsushima on PS4. Third parties will bring the cross-gen games. Some first-party games will get some PS5 upgrades." And so, yeah, this is him basically saying what everybody else who's kind of in the know here is saying, and that is, yeah, Sony is not really going to have cross-gen games. Now, I've speculated myself that I expect Sony to have a few cross-gen games and a few true exclusives, but it wouldn't surprise me if Sony just decided to say, you know what, we're just going to make all of our games for PS5 only playable on PS5. Something else that was interesting in this thread, if you go a little bit further, is somebody had asked him if we can expect a PS5 version of Days Gone, to which he referred somebody to a developer on Twitter who works at Ben's studio and said that perhaps you can, this individual can answer that question for this person, which maybe is him slightly hinting at a Days Gone PS5 upgrade or something like that. And I want to focus on what he said here at the bottom, where he said some first-party games will get some PS5 upgrades. And then if you look further down, somebody had asked him if there's going to be free updates for first-party games. And Tidix responded by saying he wouldn't count on it. Now, this is him not confirming that he knows for sure. He's not saying anything definitively. But it makes me think, what is Sony going to do when it comes to upgrading some of these games? We know that Sony is going to have PlayStation 5 exclusives. Also, I just want to deviate for just a second here and remind people, those who maybe have forgotten, if you want more proof that Sony is going to have just PS5 exclusives at launch, or games that you can only play on the PS5 if you're planning on upgrading, or you're looking forward to them, Godfall is a PS5 PC only game as of right now. It has not been confirmed for PS4, and it has been revealed as the first PS5 title. So there's just straight up proof that, yeah, even though it is going to PC, it's because it's a third party deal, it's still only going to be playable on the PS5, thus it's going to be a next gen game only. But getting back to what we were talking about here, the upgraded games, The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, Death Stranding, are these games going to get PlayStation 5 enhancements? If they do, will they be free, or is Sony planning on either charging for the upgrades or potentially even re-releasing? And this is where the conversation gets really interesting, and I think Sony's going to have to do a very good job explaining how they plan to handle this, because the PS5 is going to be backwards compatible. When you buy it, you can put your PS4 discs into it and you can play them. At least that's what we're all assuming how it will work. That's how it should work anyway. That's what people are expecting. And the question is, The Last of Us Part 2, if you put that into your PlayStation 5, people are going to be expecting upgrades. The question is, will they be free upgrades? Will you have to pay like $5 or $10 fee to get those upgrades and unlock them? Or will Sony even have the, do they have the intention of just reselling these games with PS5 versions? And this is where it's tricky territory, because Sony would probably say, let's resell these games because we can make more money. But they have to be very careful how they approach that. Let's take a game like Bloodborne, for example. That's a game that if they resold it and it's a PS5 version where it's like essentially remastered, I think people would be totally okay with that. First of all, because people are just desperate for anything else Bloodborne related that would show that Sony still has an interest in it, but also because it's so far removed, it'll be like 5 years at that point, right? That if they do that in late 2020 or early 2021 or late 2021 or something like that, they could get away with that. However, talking about games like Days Gone, God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima, these are all games that are kind of questionable, because if Sony were to re-release some of these games as PS5 titles, I don't know how well that would go down. Now, maybe they could do it by offering them at like a really cheap price point, like $20, or maybe if you I don't know how they would do it. Like if you already own the game for PS4, you put the disc in, you pay like $10 to get the upgrades or something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly how they would handle this, and this is where I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Sony has to say about these upgrades and how it's going to work. And it seems here that this individual Tidix, who I'd say knows more than I do anyway about what Sony's plans are, sounds like he's not anticipating and not counting on Sony making these updates free. So I think that it could work out for them well if they handle it well, if it seems like it's a fair deal, but some people are certainly not going to be happy, and the question is, if this is how Sony chooses to do it, what exactly is it going to require? Is it going to require us basically rebuying an entire game, paying a small upgrade fee, or what? So we're going to find out about that. I just wanted to discuss that at the end here because I found that particularly interesting. But for those who are going around trying to make it seem that Sony is not going to have PlayStation 5 exclusives at launch, they will. There will be games that you can only play on PS5. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if every game announced for PS5 is only playable on PS5, unless you're talking about maybe a third-party deal like Godfall where it's also playable on PC. I'm not expecting many cross-gen games at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't any cross-gen games. But that's going to do it for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. I will be interested to see what you guys have to say. What do you think about the upgrades that we can expect to see with some of these games? Are you expecting to pay for them? Are you expecting Sony to resell you the game? Or do you think they're just going to be there day one if you own the PS4 version and put it in your PS5? And what do you think about Sony having true exclusive games at launch? Leave your thoughts down below. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it or found it informative. It really helps it out. Lets me know you guys enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.